Welcome to another time episode of Everything Sports with Aman and Evan. I'm your host, Evan Garber, and today I'm going to be going over the AL Central, as I mentioned last week, and we'll be doing the AL West on Thursday. But I know there's a lot of NFL news going on these past couple of days, but Aman and I will recap it at the end of the week on Saturday, as we will probably see tons more of news coming up in these next few days. But make sure to tune in to Spotify Apple Podcasts on Saturday to hear our thoughts on all the NFL free agency news. But also make sure to follow us on YouTube Shorts and TikTok, as we will be posting shorts about the deals throughout the week, as we have released some already for yesterday's moves and one for today's moves as well. But make sure to follow us on all the platforms so you don't miss out on any of our content. But we'll get right into the AL Central. And first, I also do apologize for the scuff setup. It's not exactly the greatest setup. I am sorry about that if it is a little bit wonky, but starting off in fifth place in the AL Central, we do got the Chicago White Sox. The key additions being John Brebbia and Michael Soroka, and the key subtractions being Tim Anderson, Liam Hendricks, Mike Clevenger, and Elvis Andrus. Now, in my eyes, this clearly is the worst team in the division. They really just don't got much going for them. And we could, in fact, see Dylan Cease traded before the beginning of the season, as the Yankees have now re-engaged in talks. They have sent an offer over to the Chicago White Sox, as Garrett Cole deals with some injury concerns. The Yankees trying to make sure that the pitching staff does not have the same story as last season, or same story as guys like teams like the Mets, who dealt with a lot of injuries, and the Yankees looking to make, of course, that World Series push. Of course, they traded for Juan Soto and everything, but aside from the point, the White Sox, Luis Robert is obviously a good player, but other than that, the team is just not great. Clearly the fifth place team. Moving on to fourth place, you got the Kansas City Royals. It was tough to decide between them and the Tigers, who, of course, I'm in third place, but it's tough to decide between those two teams. But I did go with the Royals in fourth place. Conditions: Austin Nola, Adam Frazier, Hunter Renfroe, Michael Walker, Seth Lugo, Chris Stratton, Will Smith, and Garrett Hampson. Key subtractions being Zach Greinke, Brady Keller, and Matt Duffy. Now, I do really like what they did in free agency. Got a lot of veteran guys, but I see it as more as get these veteran guys and hopefully they can have good seasons and you trade them at the deadline. I think that's really what I would do, at least if I'm the Royals. That's what I think their direction is for this season. Now, we could see, of course, we could see them go off completely and these guys help lead them to a playoff spot, but I don't see that happening. I think this is more of a let's get these guys, trade them at the deadline to contenders and get some prospects or MLB ready guys for the future. But they do have some really solid guys. Cole Reagans, who I didn't really know a whole lot about, former first rounder, I believe in 2018, I think it was, but he's a really solid guy, and my opinion, he could be an all-star this season if you're in fantasy baseball leagues. Definitely try to draft this guy. This guy's probably going to be a steal in most leagues. But of course, I do have Bobby Witt Jr. He's an absolute stud, but aside from him, the lineup is just not that strong, and that's why I do have them in fourth place. I know they have a great season, great end of the season, but I just don't think these guys are that impactful, and I think they will move them at the deadline. There's a good amount of them. Third place, like I mentioned, I do have the Detroit Tigers. Key additions being Gio Urshela, Jack Flaherty, Andrew Chafin, Kenta Maeda, and Mark Canna. Key subtractions being Eduardo Rodriguez, Miguel Cabrera, and Spencer Turnbull. Now, it's another team that signed some pretty solid vets, but again, none of these guys are that impactful, just like the Royals. But I think what I do push them over the Royals is their pitching staff and lineup. I do trust a little bit more than I do Kansas City. Now, of course, pitching staff is led by Tariq Skubal, who's a very underrated arm, and I think can definitely be at least a top 10 Cy Young candidate. This guy is very good. He's going to be very good for years to come. And then Alex Lange, another guy that most people probably don't know, but he's a pretty solid closer. Now, I don't think he's top 10, but he definitely is a very, very solid closer. Guy that more people need to know. Should definitely be a more well-known guy. Both Tariq Skubal and Alex Lange, of course, as I mentioned, for Cole Reagans. Definitely going to be some solid guys, some solid, I wouldn't say later picks, but some solid steals in fantasy baseball drafts. And in terms of the lineup, I mean, and of course we know that Riley Green is a stud, but Torkelson's pretty good, of course, as well. And they do have number 22 prospect Colt Keith, who will be on the opening day roster. So that right there, along with those pitchers, Tariq Skubal and Alex Lange, that's a pretty solid core for this Detroit Tigers team. Alex Lange is not exactly young, but those guys right there, pretty solid core for the Tigers to build around. Of course, they do have some young guys in that farm system who are good as well, but I don't think they're there yet to push. They can push for the division, but they are a pretty solid team. I just trust them a little bit more than the Kansas City Royals, so that's why I have them in third place. Second place, we do have the Cleveland Guardians. Their key additions being Hudson Hedges and Scott Barlow. Key subtractions being Ronaldo Lopez, Cole Calhoun, and Cal Quantrill. Now, I had a little bit of tough time deciding between them and then the Twins for first place, but I did go with the Cleveland Guardians at second place. Now, I just really want this team to make a big move. Like, this team always just feels one big piece away from being the clear division favorite and maybe being in title contention. No, I don't think they are in title contention right now. I mean, they probably will be a playoff team, but this team is just not there, I don't think, in my eyes. Not a heavy favorite, not a contender, I don't think. Of course, not even division contender in the AL Central, but this team just has some disappointing people last season. Shane Bieber is pretty disappointing. We'll see if he can bounce back. But Tristan McKenzie, he's an absolute stud. He did miss much last season with severe muscle strain, but in 2022 he was great. We'll see if he can find that 2022 form and be back to where he was, and hopefully end up being that ace of the staff, because he is electric. He is great. Very young guy. We'll see if he can find that stride and lead this team to some very needed wins in this AL Central that honestly they could still win. But of course, they do have Emmanuel Clase, one of the best closers in the game. So got some good guys, but I don't know. The lineup just isn't that great. I do like Josh Naylor, but aside from that, just not a huge fan of this lineup now. I think that really separates them, though, from the Tigers and the Royals is their defense, and of course they do have experience as well. Very great defensive team, which honestly goes a long way. Like, if you're a Giants fan, like myself, you know this very well. Giants honestly could have been a playoff team if they had a better defense, and of course they addressed that this offseason with Jung-Hoo Lee and Matt Chapman. We'll get to that a little bit. We'll get to that later in a couple of weeks, but this Guardians team, they're a good team, just not great in my eyes. I think that's really why I have them in second place. Good, but not great. Not there yet. Hopefully they do end up making a big move at some point, because I'm a big J Ram fan and I want J Ram to be a contention for a World Series. But in first place, of course, we do have the Minnesota Twins. The key additions being Anthony Scafani, Carlos Santana, and Manuel Margot. Key subtractions being Sonny Gray and Michael A. Taylor. Now, the main reason I have them winning this division is their pitching. Of course, Pablo Lopez is their ace. I think he's a bit underrated. And then, of course, you have Joe Ryan, Billy Ober, and Louis Varland out of 2 to 4, alongside Chris Paddock, who looks to bounce back after Tommy John surgery. That pitching staff right there, honestly, is pretty solid. Like, look at the stats. It's a pretty good 1 through 5, maybe 1 through 6 once you get Scafani back, assuming he can stay healthy. But this is probably one of the better full rotations in all of baseball, I think. There are some teams that have some good 1, 2, 3 guys, but the 4th, 5th guys are just not that strong. And this team has 6 guys that I can say, okay, I can trust you. Like, I can throw you out in a playoff series, maybe 5, I guess. But I can throw you out in a playoff series, and I can trust that you can do enough for this team to stay in the game and hopefully win that playoff series. But of course, they rely more on Paulo Lopez and Joe Ryan in those playoff series. But Billy Ober and Louis Varland, you can get some pretty solid innings out of those guys. And of course, leave it up to your bullpen, who's absolutely great. I think that's really just what they need if you're the Twins. Like, just need some solid innings from your starters. Get to 6, maybe 7, hopefully 7. But because they have a great bullpen. Of course, Griffin Jacks and Johan Duran as the 8-9 punch. It's pretty insane 8-9 punch, and other guys are really solid as well. All these guys throw a lot of gas. Most of them do, and they limit runs, which of course is what you need as a pitcher. And this bullpen is very, very strong. Like I said, you just need innings out of some of these guys. But all these guys are actually pretty solid, like Billy Ober and Louis Varland. Like, they're solid. I mean, yeah, you're relying on them to get innings, but they can give you really, really quality innings. So that's why I think this team separates themselves in this division. Lineup doesn't scare me a little bit, but I think Carlos Correa will bounce back. Ice Kepler is a pretty underrated guy. And Royce Lewis, of course, he's put onto the scene in the 2023 playoffs. So we'll see what this team can do. I think the pitching is going to take them pretty far. But if the hitting can, in fact, be up to what we know they can be, can live up to the potential, then this team can be pretty scary. I'm not going to say they're title contenders, but they can definitely make a big run if they can find their stride in that lineup. But let me know what you guys think down below. Comment down below your takes on the AL Central. And make sure to tune in Thursday, where we'll have the American League West.